IMAX3 begins. The first episode is where is the best location to save data. First of all, what is information? In the process of living, when living things start doing various things at random, regardless of the circumstances around them, they go to dangerous places, eat dangerous things, or contract infectious diseases. Or maybe they just go extinct. Therefore, at the time a creature arises, we refer to the surrounding circumstances and events to increase the probability that the creature will survive as much as possible. This is the essence of information. The more you collect, and the more meaningful information you have, the better your chances of survival. The information collected by one person is not a big deal, so if everyone collects it, the probability of survival as a group increases. However, the vast amount of information becomes impossible for living things to process as individuals. If it is not managed by a system that is more reliable than the memory of living things, it will disappear before you know it, and you will not know what it was originally. The relationship between information is also important, so it's better to collect it all in one place. It simplifies information, which is ambiguous, so that it can be understood by machines. Here is the data. There are several types of data according to expiration dates. Like the history of living things, there are things that are bad if you don't remember them. For example, cave paintings and old maps can be called data. Then there are the universals, such as the types of food we eat and how we use resources. In addition, there are things that are updated, such as rules made by living things and the state of the environment. If we can access information with little effort, and based on past data, we could obtain guidelines for how to act in order to increase the probability of survival in the future, we can keep living in a while. However, if we go further, the resources and energy provided by the environment will become scarce, and even among the same organisms, competition will begin, scramble for information, and spread false information. Resources and energy are needed to protect the data, but since they cannot do much on their own, they force them on a determined leader, leading to war and the destruction of living things. When this happens, the Earth becomes a very difficult place to live. The story of immigrating to another planet out of necessity will no longer be science fiction. Wow, it's dangerous, it's dangerous. But given the current situation, it's harder to imagine a future that deviates from this story. Even if I understand, I can't stop. There's really nothing you can do about living things. However, there is a branching point in the previous story, and creatures can survive for a while as long as they do not consume resources and energy. Of course, solar panels require resources, and making batteries also requires resources, so it's not an easy story. Ultimately, it comes down to one thing: stop relying on the energy of your dreams and ask yourself what you should be doing in your current situation. AI is popular now, but it's all about wasting energy and increasing short-term profits a little. Living things are imperfect existences that only see short-term profit no matter how much they get. Based on the data so far, in order to increase the probability of survival in the future, get a guideline on how to act. Do a long-term simulation for survival. For now, I have to start here. Of course, there may be no guideline, but that's it. If everyone shares it, new wisdom will come out. Assuming that the extinction of the human race is just a little bit ahead, we will not look at it, and assuming that data is important, where should we put the huge amount of data? It doesn't matter how long it takes to retrieve data that you don't use very often. In that respect, murals that remain even if somewhat damaged are great. I've heard of imitating this, engraving it into a special substance, and storing it for 1,000 years, but I don't think there's any way to retrieve it after 1,000 years. Anything too much is pointless. Realistically, we have no choice but to transfer it to the most advanced recording method of the era and continue to preserve it for generations to come. Also, copy it to multiple places, not just one. By the way, it is necessary to think about where to store data that is not often used, but data such as rules and environments used in simulations are generated in various places and updated daily. It's fine to keep this kind of data as a record, but if you decide to run the simulation immediately, you don't actually need to keep it. In other words, you don't have to think seriously about where to put it. What should be considered is the energy required to transport the data. The more data collected and the greater the distance to the simulator, the more energy is required. In order to reduce energy, it is necessary to cut off useless data that is not useful for simulation and transport only the features, that is, the essence. It took quite a while, but I finally arrived at the world of computers. However, in order to make it more than just an entertainment or hobby computer, these surroundings are important. Now, how can we make a simulation using the collected data? Of course, we will make a model, but from here on, we will talk about how to make a computer. For example, you can create a large data storage area, retrieve 65,536 separate data at once, perform 32,768 calculations at once, and write the results back to any location at once. With such a simple, super fast computer, simulations are pretty fast. However, in reality, such a computer cannot be built. Some say that a 15-bit quantum gate computer can perform 32,768 operations at once with a special regularity. It is still difficult to move stably. I don't know if there is a technology to stabilize it, or how much energy is needed for stability. Its uses are limited to special cases. On the other hand, there is already a computer called GPU that can run applications with a certain regularity, even though it has a special structure. If you just need to do about 32,768 same operations at the same time for a moment. The price is several 100,000 yen. Even though it consumes 350 watts. Why can't I just fetch 65,536 separate pieces of data at once, do 32,768 calculations at once, and write the results back to whatever location I want at once? An intuitive analogy would be to order products from 65,536 stores in Tokyo and have them delivered to your home in Nara within an hour. Select 65,536 types of products on the net and click in order. You can't do this in an hour. Even if you place an order, it takes time for the shop to confirm the order and ship it. Finally, 65,536 delivery workers line up in front of the entrance, forming a long line of 65 kilometers. Such a mechanism would be impossible. But if the condition is only 65,536 products, it is possible. If you only need one kind of 5 cm square candy, you only need to place one order. When stacked in 32 times 32 times 32, one side is 1.6 meters. If you prepare 2 boxes of this, it is 65,536 products. I hope you understand now. In short, it is possible if you use regularity to make it smaller. If you use the Chuo Maglev Shinkansen, 1 hour is not impossible. After all, a fast computer that can store a huge amount of data is not fast all the time, but fast if regularity is used well. And the natural property that the same result is obtained no matter how many times it is calculated is very important. Otherwise, even if some result is obtained, it cannot be confirmed whether it is correct or not. This cannot be called a simulation. In conclusion, the data storage should be single space and large. If the storage is huge, it takes a long time to retrieve it. Modern computers are based on some regularity of data. If you remember these basics, you pass this time. Well, that's all for today.